Hey everybody, welcome to the Equity Guru Gauntlet series where I, Chris Parry, tackle dropkick, pile drive, pubco CEOs and give them a hard time.
Woo!
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 With me I have Peter Bell from Kermode. And let me start with, I think, for me, the most obvious question about Kermode Resources. Why'd you name it after a bathroom?
Right? Simple question. Simple answer is I didn't name it.
Well, there you go. I guess that works.
And the longer answer might be it's not commode, the toilet, although the stock has been in the toilet for far too long. Sorry, it is Kermody, the spirit bear, the white bear, that unusual white grizzly bear. It's named that's the Kermody white bear.
Okay, well that's an origin story there.
And the funny part too, Chris, there's layers to the onion, right? One of my favorites is the ticker KLM is the initials of the former CEO's wife. So I don't know how they made that decision 30 years ago, but the company went public in like 1993, and it's one management team that was really holding it together for all that time. And I don't think they changed the name of it ever. You know, I think that was really the consistent branding all the way through. They had a few shells, a few different companies. They had like 3 at one point. They had Rupert and Playfair and Kermody. And so, you know, they had a few shots on names. And I don't think they obsessed too much over trying to get any one of them quite dialed.
Well, you know what I think is interesting is it's very rare you get to see a small pubco miner with a 20-year chart. That shows you that there was more stock motion before that 20 years. Like, yeah, there's a lot of history there.
Yep. But thankfully not a big hole in the ground or a big hole in the balance sheet. The total accumulated deficit over life of company is only 10 million. Really, which over 30 years, you know, go public in 93 and then tell me that in 2022 you've only raised and spent 10 million bucks. You know, the question is, what were you doing all those years? But you know, at the flip side of that is it's not brutal dilution. You know, it's not, stock hasn't been rolled back yet. So it's been fairly friendly in some ways in terms of not being punitive to the, but then again, you know, a lack of activity is kind of punitive in its own way. And when I joined, it was a half-penny bid on 60 million shares out at $325,000 market cap. And I just said, how much of the company can I buy at that price, guys? Please. A sub 500,000 valuation on a venture shell.
Yeah.
All day, guys. I please sign me up. I want to help. Yep.
So talk me through the takeover, because you know you weren't always the CEO of this company. You were an interested observer. You were then on the board, and then at some point, you and Peter Klausy just decided, you know what, man, fuck this shit. Right?
Time for some fireworks. Time for set the smoke machines up. Let's get the theme music, the sound of crashing glass. You know, Austin 316.
Some running from outside the ring.
Come on, it's a Royal Rumble over here. Let's go. Oh man.
So I love a good takeover because all too often, you know, pubco, especially mining explorers, they just dwindle along the bottom there. They maybe get sort of kicked along to someone else who owes someone some money, or like it's just an endless repetition of, well, now we're going to raise $500,000 and we're going to go to town and someone's got a job for the next 4 years.
A sucker is born every minute.
What did Kermode have when you guys went in for it?
Nothing. They needed a warm body. I had helped them with Playfair. The group was much more focused on Playfair, and I was doing Twitter for them for Playfair and stuff like this, right? And they had this other thing in the background, this Kermody deal. And they had a guy on the board who they had to leave, and they called me up. They were like, it's happening. You know, it was December, and they were like, we need somebody for January 1st. What? Really? Okay, I guess I'm doing this. You know, I was in that spot where it's like, if opportunity comes at that point, I'm taking it, right?
So from social media guy to CEO.
Yeah, in a pretty surprise. Yeah, and very, very like in the shadows too. Like the referee's distracted and you know what I mean? The girls are on the side of the ring, like yelling at the guy and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, somebody comes in, there's some dust in his face,
someone with the chair,
or he got the sock, he got the sock on the hand and blah, 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 blah. Like, come on, what are we doing here? You know, like very funny. Clausey, respect Peter Clausey. I had been talking to him for a few months about, you know, what these things look like. And what happened was that there was a large hostile shareholder group in Kermode from years gone by, and they were not happy. And underwater and upset.
Pitchforks, torches.
The whole thing, just a real nasty breakdown in communication on all angles. Mm-hmm. And that was the Eastgate project. They had this project in Nevada that had this history that was kind of sketchy and still is. Okay. And Kermode didn't have a majority position in that project. They only had like a 15% of a JV. And so the venture starts asking you guys, what's your property of merit? Why are you a public company? And so they needed a new property, and they were stretching it out to the edges of what the exchange would do for them, basically. Okay. And yeah, so
now you're the boss. Which, you know, we're in a junior mining explorer with 25 cents gets you on the subway. What's your experience been like?
Well, pretty good, to be honest. It's been chaotic and unpleasant overall, but I knew that going in.
Unpleasant as in that you're surrounded by sharks that are looking to get, you know, the last bits of fat off the bones, or there's just a lot of work to do? Neither. Okay.
I don't mind the work. The work's fun and easy, and I found it easier to run this public company than it has been to run private companies that I've been involved with. Okay. So the work hasn't really been the hard part, and the people have been there in a lot of ways to help get the work done. And there was not really any meat on the bones. You know, it's such an emaciated corpse for so long that nobody's, you know, the only people you got to worry about that are kind of the old team hitting us with, oh, you owe us an extra 50, 100, 200 grand that we didn't tell you about. And nothing like that really happened, thankfully. So kind of dodge both of those things. It's more of like an existential, you know, dread of like, does the world really need another junior mining company, Chris? That question sucks. You know what I mean? And like, what are we doing? Really? Like,
I think that's healthy. You know, like I say it all the time, like, you know, you go to PDAC and you walk the floor and you see 85 tables with the same backdrop, a map, a reflective vest, and a truck that they don't own yet. And it's supposed to be like, hey, pay attention to me and not the other 80 guys. And you say, well, why you? What have you got that no one else has got?
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, you're too young to get it.
We got this project. Let me tell you about the geology. Let me baffle you with bullshit. And
let me say Jurassic a bunch of times. And
well, that's not it. Yeah, no, that's not it. That's not it.
So like you're in there. You're like the complete blank slate, for want of a less, you know. Like you've been around the business for a long time. You understand what a good mine is opposed to a bad mine. You understand what decent results are.
To some degree, yeah.
As much as most junior mining company executives do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've only ever interviewed one junior mining exec that had dust on his cap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that guy turned out to be a big fraud. So
yeah.
So coming at it from a different perspective, like, you know, I've often asked a lot of mining guys, like, if you went back to 1975 and stood at your mine, would it look any different from what it looks like today? Like the same equipment, the same techniques, the same strategies for raising money, right? Yeah. Every other industry has, like, you know, drones and electric vehicles and satellites, and mining.
It's a scary
I feel like
thought.
if we could Jurassic Park some like 1800s mining guys,
they would be able to function. No, that's legit. Yeah, because one of the projects that I've brought to the company, we don't have it definitive yet, but it's LOI stage, and it was a silver mine in the 1860s in Nevada, and you go there today, it's the same. Nothing's happened to it. It's a time capsule.
There's a saloon with some hookers on the balcony, and
Not even, not even because it's up in the hills, you know, it's just far enough away from the town and the road and everything that it's like, it's not a tourist attraction. You know, some of the old mines are tourist attractions now. This is just, you know, it's got maybe a small door up on the thing to keep people out, but really it's a time capsule. And you could bring somebody from 150 years ago and plop them down there today and they would know how to get the kinds of results that
Yep.
would make the market excited. They would be able to sample like these crazy silver numbers with these high grade number. Like the reason Nevada is called the silver state is stuff like these mines. And you could bring somebody out from 150 years ago and they would be able to go and hand cob and high grade some stuff and bring it to the brokers and everybody would get excited. San Francisco, you take it a you know, it's what's old is new
Put it on
again.
the stage. Yeah.
It's real. Yeah, that's a scary thought.
So as somebody who's now come into the industry from a different viewpoint, right? Not as a markets guy who's just looking to raise money endlessly, and not as a geo who just wants to, you know, get to the next level, but as somebody who's looked at this industry from the outside and now finds themselves plopped into the middle of it, I'm guessing you have some new ideas.
Well, I was an
Crazy as they
investor.
may be.
I was an investor. Keep in mind, I was an investor, right? Like I was a markets guy, but I was small time family office. I wasn't like, oh, help me. This marketing, this raise you this money. I get this fee. No.
Right.
I'm picking stocks and living and dying on what happens with them.
Right.
And then
Spending
there
way
was
too many hours on CEO.ca.
oh, think of the wasted years, man. For like
Yeah.
5 years that I've been like since it was a blog. I remember when
Yeah.
I was doing my PhD stuff. Like I did 5 years of an economics PhD before I like dropped out. And when I was in the last years of that, CEO.ca was still a blog, and I like wrote some articles here and there. And then when it became that chat site, like I've been all over that since it started. And like what a strange community that is, you know. And definitely try to step back a little bit at times, you know, especially with the CEO role where it's like, look, I want to be accessible and I want to put stuff out there, but I also have to be careful a lot more now than ever before. So no, I was a markets guy. And what it was for me was like, I remember the first time I met like Rick Rule and I went to that like conference that used to be the Agora Natural Resource Symposium, which was this big marketing machine in the US that just like really good at pumping these stories out and down people's throats. Very, very good stock promotional, you know, targeted advertising. And they had a big event that somehow I ended up at in Vancouver in like 2011. And I met, I had been going to conferences for years before that, like junior mining things. I kind of knew it, but start to meet some of these legendary investors. And that's where it changed for me because I was really a student of the markets. And so when I started to hear guys talking about portfolio construction and their speculation strategies, bet sizing, win-loss ratios, you know, decision trees, all this kind of stuff, I was like, yes, I'm here. Okay, I'm taking notes, guys. What are you talking about? Run it back from the start. Let's go again. Yeah, I'm listening. And that was the last 10 years of my life, basically, was just that. Immersed in the spec side of the junior mining space.
So how does that translate to being at the pointy end now?
Lots of ways. I've invested in lots of juniors that, you know, went poorly. So lots of lessons learned about things, mistakes and disasters. And I've had some successes as well. So I have some idea of what those kinds of look like. And then I also I've spent a lot of time talking to other investors. So, you know, I have my perspective and what I've learned from other, you know, legends, but then I also just have soaked stuff up from all kinds of weirdos out there. Mm-hmm. So got a pretty broad set of different hats of what different speculator market people kind of look for. Mm-hmm. And my favorite part of what I did was that I got to make the decisions, right? And it was like, look, this is my money. Thanks very much. Right. And so now it's a similar story. And stepping into the role as CEO, the first money that we spent, the first money I spent was my own money, because the takeover was such a, you know, strange experience that we didn't have control of the bank accounts for weeks or months or anything like that. Like we still haven't spent significant amounts of company money really, right, because like we're keeping those purse strings very tight. But I took some of my personal money like right after the takeover and started putting it to work and being like, okay, I'm looking at the roulette table. I'm putting some money on 2 here. I'm putting some money on red. Oh, you got to get green. Don't tell me that you forgot to put money on green. I've done that too many times. Like you got play for those wild outcomes that just might happen. So all of that betting and gambling and speculation strategy that I was doing with companies, I'm now doing at the project level. And I get to
so
do it
now,
with
like
public company
being at the
money.
project level, where there's a lot of people with their hand out
Oh
to
yeah.
start with. And there's a lot of people who think that it would be really advantageous to you if you shot them 1 million options or so that they could increase your liquidity. A lot of people that I've spoken to that are first-time Pubco CEOs talk about the realization one day that everyone's out to get you.
Yeah.
And that, you know, as much as we put shit on CEOs for being quiet, for not communicating, that the reason they're doing that is because if they spoke out loud, they'd be saying, holy shit, do you know what's happening to me out here?
Yeah. And one of the things that helps me with that is that I didn't build this shell, right? These are not, the shareholder base are not my friends. I didn't place anybody in this stock other than the one round that we've done now. That's, you know, we talk about the details of that already. I've started to have those kinds of experiences that you're alluding to out of the gate. And it's like, okay, good. Yeah. Just keep your head down. And I'll just say, like, markets are like war. Like, it's hard for me to say that not knowing what war is really, but like my experience, you know, I was trading when I was 20, 21, right? Financial crisis and stuff like that, prop trading, day trading stuff. And there was always a sense for me that being in markets is like being on a battlefield, you know, because you can get taken out, you can get killed, you know, and you can be a hero, you can, right? And sometimes it's the other people around you who are the biggest risk to you. So there's a lot of stuff like that I kind of already knew. And I'd spent a lot of time, you know, eating shit in the junior mining business. So that's normal, you know, at this point with regards to dealing with all this crap that you're talking about.
Talking of eating shit in the junior mining space, you don't have any gray hair. You're not going bald. How quickly are you dismissed?
Oh, well, I haven't even taken a shot yet, really. You know, like what? I don't call brokers. I don't call funds. I just keep my head down and try and pinch out the little money we have to get as many, you know, bonanza grade headlines as we can.
Okay.
That's it. Like my strategy, like is you're paying for headlines. Right. My thinking in the junior mining business is that it's a business you put money in and you get news releases out. That's it. We're not turning a profit. We're not selling projects most of the time. It's really like a stock market business for the pundits and the financiers. Yeah. So and that made me hungry to come in and get as much as I could out of the gate, right? So I'm plus 10% of this shell that I bought at like a 1.5 million valuation, right? So that was another thing that I wanted to do as well was like by me putting up my own money out of the gate to do exploration work, I was able to show people, yes, we can get boots on the ground and do real work. And yes, I have my money at stake in this deal. And I'm not, you know, the first thing I'm doing is not like paying ourselves a bunch of bonus fee for the takeover or whatever. Like the takeover was not like a good thing, really. It was like, it was kind of embarrassing, you know, and bad and controversial. And it's not, you know, it's a good story and there's fun lessons in it and stuff, but you got to be careful with that too, because you can upset people. And there's a lot of people who take take things real serious, real personal. And I'm not trying to come out here and make a bunch of enemies.
Somebody who's had death threats over
I know
weed companies, right?
Yeah,
like you take $500 million off someone's market cap, they get really fucking ornery at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I think it would be safe to say that the expectation level for your company being as it was when you came in is zero, right? Like if you set up a hot dog stand at the end of the driveway and managed to raise about 8K a year, you're ahead of where it was.
It was, as I said, it was a $300,000 valuation when I joined, right? And now it's 2 or whatever.
And only that because it was the minimum it could be.
Exactly, it couldn't be lower. There were sellers in that market, and the buyers were such that they would have been like, "Hey, come fill us at $1. We'll buy all the company from you." Very, very strange situation. And that means all the paper in this deal's against me, basically. Mm-hmm. That's like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We can debate the finer points, but
people have doubled their money and they're selling.
Right? Other than the long-term bag holders who are stuck from 10 years ago that are calling me like, "Hey, can you just get me some liquidity?" I'm like, what? You want me to run a promotional campaign so you can get out because you bought too much stock 10 years ago? Why? What? Sorry, who are you again? Are you
Yeah.
in our next financing? No. Oh, okay. So can you talk to my IR guy, please? Because he's working for free too, and I can't afford to be wasting my time here with you. It's mind-boggling, man, in so many ways. And it is it's the wreckage of a bear market. I think it has to be to some degree that the wreckage of a bear market, that a shell like this would be sitting there for, and circumstances would come together such that I would be able to pick it up and try and do something better with it, in a way that's not really destructive.
Right.
All the Vancouver guys, all my buddies, they were like, oh, just as soon as we took it over, they wanted me to roll it back and then crash the price and then dilute all the old guys.
Right.
And I'm like, look, I'm all for a good rollback, but what?
So looking back over 20 years, the high, or 10 years, the high is 57 cents.
Yeah.
Like it may be that there are lots of people underwater, but they're not that far underwater. Like
No.
one or two good hits and they're back and you're the fucking hero of the nation, right?
Yep. And that's because it was never rolled back. So you don't have like these $10 people who are in the deal that got rolled back 100 to 1 yet. Something like
devil's advocate. A lot of guys in the markets look for a shell like that they can grab for $300,000 to $500,000. And then whatever's the hot sector of the moment,
yeah.
It's a sneaker collector aggregator,
Yeah.
or it's a psychedelics play with a gold property in the back, like
a movie theater with a gold mine. Let's go.
Right. You've stuck to your knitting here,
yeah.
Which tells me that you think that there's something to be done that can get this thing to the promised land, even from a starting point of no money, no momentum. Like, tell me what it is in like 50 words or less that you're aspiring to do now that the dust has settled.
Well, it has to do with years spent investing in other public junior mining companies and seeing them all make the same mistakes. And maybe one of the defining features out of the gate here is the fact that we don't have a company geologist.
Okay.
We've got a director, an independent director who's a geologist. Thank you very much. Francine Long. She's great. But we don't have a VP exploration. We have project geologists, right? So we have a project in BC. We have a QP, a geologist there. We have projects in Nevada. We have a QP, project geologist there. Stuff in Newfoundland, geologist there, right? So from an organizational perspective, what I'd seen is that a lot of juniors, the QP, like the company geologist, has so much power
right
over saying what happens that the CEO is just like, well, whatever they say. And it's like, guys,
go
no.
talk to Barry.
And it's such a problem because a geologist is not going to define a bullish program, a promotional program. So my thinking was that I can do promotional programs. I think I know what a promotional program looks like, and we can get there with relatively low cost if we team up with local teams where the project vendor is the exploration services provider, is the QP, is the media support, is doing some community engagement type stuff as well, right? So I'm trying to find turnkey solutions. I'm not trying to build Kermode its own team. I'm trying to find teams that already exist and put them up on the next level. That's the 50 words or less version. I know it's 300 words.
Yeah, able to pivot when needed, and if old Barry's a little bit drunk after 4 p.m. too often, we'll just go find a new one.
You know what I mean? But we're getting married too, though, because those property deals that we do that come with the vendor, geologist group and all that, like those aren't dates, like the LOI stage we're doing is dates. But then when we sign those things and we really get into we're getting married there. So we'll have to put up with buddies' drinking habits or whatever it is. So, and I'll say this, the 3 deals that we have that are alive right now, the one that's signed and the other 2 LOIs, I've known all 3 of those vendors for years, like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years type stuff. So I'm already doing stuff with people and that was the other piece, is my network, is that I believe that there's value in my network that we can kind of squeeze out of there and give them can't bring a horse to water, can't make it drink. So, I can't force these guys to do these deals, but I can show them the types of deals that I want them to get, which puts them at 5 or 10% of the pubco and then incentivizes them to keep pushing, and because a lot of these vendors, they don't really have much of the company by the time they've done all the work and the project's gone. That sucks. So I wanted to, and I've been part of a few of those deals. So I wanted to come in and be like, look, you guys, I'm the tip of, no, you're the tip of the spear. The geologist doing the work. So if you guys are really as good as you need to be, then let's get you incentivized. So that's the plan. We'll see.
You know, I've always found that legitimacy is a real marketing niche when it comes to the financial markets.
Can't fake it.
You know, it's like most people just don't even try. You know, they fuck people over. I like it when a guy comes in like yourself, who's never fucked people out of deals, who doesn't have a bad reputation, who isn't the sort of dude who's going to be like, you know, taking with one hand and giving with the other. It's like, can we just do it the right way once in a while, where everybody makes money? A lot of the promoters around House Street, you know, they're like, they're in on a deal before it's public. They get it for a cent.
Yeah.
It goes public. Free trading stock at 4 months is at 40 cents, and they're just pound. Do they think that nobody talks? Like, yeah, there's probably a useful idiot that's going to come along and let them do it again. But those guys, they seem to be on like a 2 or 3 year cycle before people just stop working with them. And, you know, the reason that we're even talking today is because I think we've respected each other over a long period of time. I know that you're in this for the right reason. So, you know, hey, free interview, go for it, man. Like, feel your boots, because we're going to be around in 25 years, right?
Yeah.
This is the thing. So I think for mine, you know,
and not everybody is, Chris, too, right? Because dear junior mining company, please be aware your investors are dying.
Oh my God, let's get to that.
That was you. Right? That was you in 2018 or something. Remember, with this classic
keynote.
Speech.
5 of you guys are going to be dead by this time next year, so we better get.
Bro, what a speech! Oh my God!
I came out on that stage and I looked, and it was just nothing but bald white guys.
Oh,
I thought I might need to change my numbers a little bit. One guy came up to me afterwards. He's like, "So do you know which 5 guys?" Because. I mean, that's the key to that speech was like the revelation that, you know, the second highest selling video game of all time is Minecraft.
Literally, I know.
Stand around saying, well, the kids aren't into mining. And yet when they go home, they're mining for 6 hours. Like, every video game has an element of like, I got to fuel my spaceship, got to go find some unobtainium in the caves. Like, it just seems to me this really bonkers idea that you have to be in a Zimmer frame to be interested in mining. And we've been, as a group, we've been out to PDAC. White Gold was a company I always mentioned for this, because we stopped at the White Gold booth at PDAC a couple of years ago, and one of our younger analysts said, explain to me what I'm looking at with the core, right? The core that was on the table. And the dude that was at the booth said, real investors know.
Yeah, fuck that.
And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm a real investor.
That's so arrogant, man. You know, like,
said, no,
I hate that.
Real investors know. We know who our investors are. Like, you know what, dude? Guess what? Your investors are dying or hanging on to their last $10,000 of income like it's the only thing stopping them from eating cat food. Whereas the young investor, if they get a win, they're like, what else you got? I got more money. I can go back to work. Like, what do you got?
What a terrible attitude, hey?
It's so bad, and it's so prevalent.
Well, and I've been living that for years, because all this stuff that I've been doing online all these years, I don't know who I'm talking to half the time. So I just assume that there's somebody important. I just assume, hey, this is a front for Eric Sprott. You know, this is one person and I'm just like, treat everybody like, even they're rude to me, whatever. Yeah. Turn the other cheek. Like, that's been my life for years. So, you know, to step into the real spotlight role here with the CEO stuff and to start to get some of the abuse already like that, it's like, yeah, whatever, par for the course. But the one thing I'm not going to do is start being, you know, rude and arrogant to shareholders. Maybe we'll laugh and we'll joke around and stuff like this, but I'm not. You can't afford to cut people down, because look how long that story lasts. That's a forever story.
I'll talk about White Gold negatively till the end of time.
And they probably deserve it too, because wasn't one of the Bridgemark guys like on their CFO or something like that for a while? Like, oh man, I don't know. Don't ask those questions. Yikes.
Those guys were the CFO of a lot of companies.
Duh. Yeah. Thank you, Clausy. Thank you, Peter Clausy, for bringing us a good back office group in Ontario. That's one of the things that's really helped with the takeover of the Pubco, was to have a kind of a smooth and professional transition to some people who knew what they were doing.
Right.
Very grateful.
Let's talk about Clausy for a second, because he's an interesting cat. Like, this is a dude who just walks into a room and identifies who the shitbags are, and then goes above and beyond to bury them.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of guys out there that like take doing the right thing as being like a big, yellow S on the front
Yep.
of their shirt. Like,
Yep.
let's not just get behind the good guys, but let's like actively crucify the bad guys.
Yep.
It'd be great if there was a lot more like him.
He's the amount of value that he's driven for me in the last year, because he just pinged me out of the blue last year around PDAC, was like, hey, Peter, do you want to do an interview? And I ghosted him. I didn't really reply at the time because I didn't want to start talking too much and telling people how I really felt, or it's going to cause some problems, but planted that seed. And then he was involved in this silver bullet deal. And that was what I had been trying to do privately. And it was a Priveco, and they were building it to go public. The project had already been in a pubco, and it had failed, and they spun it out and took it back private, and there was all this history around it. Yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, I respect this grind and this hustle. Like, these guys have been in the mud with this one, and Clausy was a big part of that. And so I had those two pieces for me with him. The one where he's like, yeah, this social justice, like corporate governance issues, like, yes, all day. And then, but also the promotional stuff. So it's not just like, oh, I'm complaining and trying to fix it, but actually building and being like, those two for me were enough.
Showing people that the right way can also be profitable.
And God, knock on wood that silver bullet's not a complete disaster, right? Because it could be, when you try and put something into production, the risks are a lot higher than exploration, But for them to take that swing, I respect that so much, and I have no other ways to invest in that strategy. But I'd been trying to do it myself privately, and so to see them do it, I was like, yes, this is my group, this is my tribe. How do I get in here? And then, the way it's all come together, very kind of spooky. There's a lot of Tao, you kind of just got to roll with it and just. Yep. Lay back a bit. It's just a lot out of your hands, and the timelines are out of your hands in a lot of ways and stuff too. So,
and I guess perception is also something you can't really control. Like, I remember sitting down with Steve DeYoung from formerly of Integra Mining, now the rock god of the mining space. But back in the day, a young guy taking over a troublesome property in Quebec. And sitting in front of me in the Stockhouse boardroom and said, what do you think? Should we change the name of this property? Because everyone just goes, oh, you got that? And I said, nah, because when you fix it, then you've really achieved something, right? Like, if you believe in yourself and you think, I can do this the right way and I can avoid the mistakes that others have made. And then people are like, you fixed what now? You fixed that piece of shit?
You did the Goldcorp data challenge on that project?
Right? Like, those guys are
rock
gods, because everything they did, they were like, well, this is what everyone does. Yeah. What if we just went around the outside and did it differently? And that has made, even from just like zooming in on a small amount of knowable gold and doing a small amount of production to finance the expansion, from like, genius. Why is it taking us 150 years for people to start doing things that way, right? Instead of spending 10 years trying to expand to 43-101.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to hate in the junior mining business.
I think you're in a place where, like, the expectations of you are realistically zero.
Yep.
The expectations of your company are less than zero because we're where it's been. But hey, like, if one of these LOIs turns into something where you lock things down, get things moving, get the geo out there on the side of the mountain, get a bit of dust on your cap, get the drills turning, like, you've spun gold out of straw.
Well, and it's a low stress way to do it too, Chris, because the expectations are so low, my phone's not blowing up all the time. You know what I mean? People are like, well, you should tweet less. I'm like, oh, great. Thanks. Any other, like, the headline in my news release was too long too, I'm sure. Right. Like these are the criticisms I'm facing. Like, okay, guys, like, yeah, I can handle that.
And you're talking to someone who's, when he was bored during COVID, started a wrestling promotion. So
I know.
I love the outside run.
You got to link up with the Right Coast Pro guys out there in New Jersey. There's a group that Goldbug in New York is tied up with as well.
I heard that there's a securities lawyer in Halifax who's a pro wrestler. So I'm going to definitely set up a lunch. Mark my words, we're bringing NEW into the public markets. It's going to be in a shell at some point in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Probably with a couple of other sporting entities that we're lining up.
Yep.
When we made an investment in a soccer club.
Yep.
When we did it, though, I was like, well, there's no real reason for this other than it's cheap, it's a good organization, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with it later. And I think there's a lot of parallels with junior mining. Like sometimes you're going to come across a space where you think, well, it might be interesting to have control of that. And it's literally a cow paddock, right? It's someone's flown over it with a helicopter, used their laptop to make a claim, and now they want to sell it to you for $5,000.
Woo!
What, and leave show business?
No, I love it. I spent 3 hours there the other day, like making that audio note for you, and then I made a transcript of it. And I was talking a bunch about, you know, parallels between wrestling and junior mining and battle rap too. I put the battle rap one in there because that's another kind of very aggressive culture or subculture that has a lot of, you know, and the junior mining business is very, very competitive. Right? Like, don't ever forget that. You know, I'm here laughing and smiling and it's all good, but like those claims and those claim jumpers and people stealing stuff and at mines, like, you know, you go to Nevada, everybody's got guns too, right? Like, it's real out there. So I'm not living that life right now, but you know, you come in with that respect, right?
Yeah.
And it'll save you from real disasters. That's been kind of order of the day for me.
One thing I learned with the soccer club when I joined the board, and I was going around all the message boards and seeing all the negative things people were saying, and I came to the next board meeting and I was like, guys, we've got a lot of work to do here. And they all just kind of blinked at me and they're like, nah, man, like if you fix everything, they're still going to be complaining. They're just going to complain about other things.
Yeah.
You almost got to just get to terms with the fact that a lot of people are going to wish you ill. They're never going to be happy. And you have to have your own set of metrics as to whether you're doing a good job or not. And I think that where you are right now, and I think with the attitude that you're showing, it tells me that you've got your own internal metrics that each month you can use to gauge, are we ahead of where we were? Are we doing okay? You don't need the wave to break. You just need it to build over time.
Yep. It's fair to say. It's tough to realize that that's what it is, you know, when you're doing it. It's tough to give yourself that credit sometimes. You know, and there's a risk of second guessing yourself. And maybe I do have a plan, but maybe I don't trust it, you know, and a week from now I try and change it and then I screw it all up too. Right. So there's a lot of, you know, management principles and kind of confidence stuff. Right. And that's where the celebrity and like the culture of like the wrestlers, right? Like show me a humble, you know, wrestler character. Right. Or a humble junior mining CEO, like maybe they should be or something like that. But, you know, when they put on the costume, they kind of have to change. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep a lot of that stuff that I learned, like being an investor and like looking at companies about like how to avoid problems and keep things kind of going simply. But then also trying to play for the crowd too, because it can't be too boring and too thought out. You know, you got to have a little spectacle.
If I can give one piece of advice, unsolicited, it's that you are the only person that can decide whether you're a success or not. Like you can look at the stock chart and say it's up or it's down and I'm good or I'm not. But that's honestly, you've got to be able to look someone in the eye who says you're a piece of shit and know that they're wrong and that it doesn't matter. And that tomorrow morning you wake up and the stock chart will go back up again, right? Like, It's the number of people I've seen go through the Pubco Gauntlet of like 6 months in, they've gone bald, they're wrinkled, their eyes have bags under them, and they're like, everybody hates me. What do I do? It's like, you don't do shit. You just keep working.
That's so funny. That came up in my recording. There was a point where I mentioned some tweets by CEO.ca, and there was one where they said something like, after you have a successful deal, you should print as much paper as you can with as many other deals as you can. And I replied and I was like, ha ha ha, that's really funny. Print as much shares as you can. You're right, guys, wink wink. And then they were like, and Tommy Humphreys on the back end of the account, he replied to me and he was like, hold on, Peter, don't you have to have a first successful deal before you can do this strategy? And I was like, oh, and it hadn't even occurred to me that I'm not a success to other people. And I didn't even want to get into it about like, bro, April 2021, I was talking about how I was going to do this. April 2022, I've done it. Right. So you tell me I'm not a success. It didn't even occur to me that I was not a success to other people. I was just like,
your company is a 0.5 cent stock or 1.5 cent stock, right? So you're a failure. Mark my words though, when it's 11 cents, well, it's only a penny stock. You're a failure, right? And when it's 58 cents, well, if you're doing any good, it'd be $1. Like, it's just what you design.
No, they move the goalposts, man. They're always moving the goalposts.
It's like being in
And
an Eastern European family. It's just never going to be good enough.
and you say family, and I'll say that that's what it is for me, because like I'm a stay-at-home dad more or less, and my parents help me out with my daughter there, and my wife works all the time, and you know, being forced to kind of unplug on a regular basis and like do stuff with a 2-year-old is been really problematic at times for, you know, being a good junior mining CEO, but it's also been really good for, you know, my mental health and perspective and just like sanity and not pulling all my hair out and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah.
Just wait till she's 13.
No, I don't. No, please no. No, thank you, sir.
So you think being a junior mining comes bad?
Yeah, I can't imagine like what it is like for kids with the internet and stuff like that. Like I know it was like for me growing up, and I think it's just going to be getting crazier and crazier. The amount of information and risks and opportunities out there too. You can't, you know, a boat is safe at harbor, but that's not what it's built for, right? So
Right.
people are built for adventures too, but how do you do it in a way that's safe and stuff like that? It's a challenge. Bring it on. Let's go.
The only thing that I've really focused on in the 15 plus years that I've had kids was to try and be a guy that they won't be ashamed of at some point.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to be the guy who's making homophobic remarks on Twitter, the guy who's screwing people over, the guy who's all about himself.
Yeah.
You want to try and have them remain interested in you by being a decent human being. So I think you're off to a good start there, Mr. Bell.
Thanks, Chris.
But get one of these deals over. Tell me just quickly. Tell me about the best looking deal you've got right now.
Oh, it's got to be the Nevada one.
Yeah,
it's got to be the Nevada one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nevada. If you buy a pack of Count Chocula breakfast cereal, they give you a mining permit as the toy.
They used to. I think they changed the Constitution last year. That doesn't happen anymore.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, they actually changed the Constitution last year to allow for a tax on mining for the first time in the state's history. So everyone's scared about taxes going up everywhere. It's happening in Nevada, guys. Be scared. It's everywhere.
That's the place where no one gets taxed except for gambling industries.
And they're putting it towards the schools. It's the thin edge of the wedge. They were like, oh, well, the schools need more money, so we're going to put a tax on mining. It's a small one. Don't be worried, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So the trial balloons, they're floating. The trial balloons are getting floated in the U.S. It is very scary times. I wouldn't be in the U.S. if it wasn't for Robert Carrington, former CEO of New Range / Columbia Mines. I've known him for 5 years. I watched what he did with New Range and worked for them as social media guy. And he got pushed out this last year because of major cost overruns at their program in 2021. So he was retired. But you know, he's not retired, right? He's brought us a couple properties that are decent, and you know, he's out there working them with his brother and his son and his grandson and maybe his father. So we got 4 generations of his family working on projects for us, and these are guys who have, you know, and he's been a public company CEO, right? So there are other good project guys that I like, but there's not many who've been pubco CEOs and who can be a QP and who know this and who know that, right? So to get all that, and when I saw that news release that he was retired, I called him that day. I was like, Robert, I took over this shell a month and a half ago. Please tell me you're not really retired. No, Peter, I'm not really. Okay, thank you. Let's build. So that's the one. Yeah,
that's the way to do it. Like, you know, you find the guys that are real. You find the guys that are, for whatever reason, have been open, and you treat them like family. Like, you know, I think you're going about things the right way. There are definitely going to be guys out there that are going to be like, well, why isn't your stock at 3 cents? What's taking you so long? Why aren't you doing a 10,000 meter drill program?
Yeah, right.
Just one step at a time, brother. One step at a time.
Hey, if somebody wants to finance us for a 10,000 drill program, get in touch with me, Peter Bell, 250-588-6939. Thank you very much.
And KLM is the ticker symbol because
let's go.
Someone was married to a KLM 20 years ago. I feel like a new name and a ticker symbol might be worth the effort.
It's coming, and a big rollback too. I've told people I want to have 5 to 10 million shares out after we fix the deal. Fixed means pass the audit, done. Raise a small amount of money, done. Get a new project or 3.
Okay.
in progress. So, you know, and part of the rollback can be a name change and ticker change. Yes, please. You know, again, because it's not my shell. I didn't build the shell. I don't have a lot of attachment to it. You know, I don't want to hurt the people in the deal particularly, but I also am prepared to do basically anything to fix it.
Right.
So
if I could be so bold as to suggest ditching resources, which
terrible.
I think is being very
terrible. Isn't that just so bad? Like what resources are we talking about, guys?
And
like
focus on energy metals.
Ooh.
Because everything's an energy metal. And it tells those young investors like, hey, man, we're not just walking around with pickaxes betraying the First Nations people.
I don't know, bro. You're going to have to beat the silver. The something silver is still, it's up there.
Oh,
really.
Yeah?
Oh, the silver bugs are so crazy. Like, you know, I love the silver bugs.
You know, what was it? Canada Cobalt, you know, Frank Bass's deal. That was a silver deal. Then it was a cobalt deal. And then silver came up again. And so it keeps like changing the name and adding words to it. And it's like 5 wordles.
Yeah. What a business. What a business.
What a business.
What a business.
All right, man. Well, at the risk of taking your entire afternoon, I'll let you go. This has been a fun one. And we'll do it again real soon.
Thanks for the opportunity. Much appreciated. Man.